everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen, and I'm going to show you today how to make Freddy Flamingo from Disney's Tots. And if you see any tools or supplies that I'm using that you could use, check the link in the description. It should help you out. Alright, to begin with Freddy, we are going to start from the bottom and work our way up. I have 2 lollipop sticks, as you see, stuck into a piece of styrofoam. I put a little paper towel on top. And I'm going to start with his boots. I have some blue gum paste. And I kind of bent it like a Christmas stocking, you know, like a letter L. And I'm hollowing out the top there just a little bit. I have a nice little curve for the toe. Just bend them up nice and tall and straight. And when you're happy with it, do the same thing with the other. You're going to have to make sure it's the same size, which is why I cut some of the extra off there. Hollow out the top a little bit, just like I'm doing with the back of that veining tool. And yeah, just again, make sure they are even. Just try to make them as even as you can. When you're happy with them, go ahead and ram them through with that lollipop stick. This is going to become part of his legs, and we're going to work this up into the body itself. So make sure it sits comfortably in the styrofoam if you're using that. And we're going to trim off the extra a little bit too, but now we're going to go on to his legs. In order to do his legs, I'm going to take those sticks back out of his boots, as you see here. And I'm using orange gum paste that I threaded over the lollipop stick, and I'm trying to make it as skinny as possible. He has very skinny legs, he has very long skinny neck, he's long and skinny all over the place. Unfortunately, I can't make him as long and skinny as I want because I don't use toothpicks. I only use stuff that's safe for kids to have in their mouths. So I'm using my lollipop sticks here. It's going to be a little bit fatter, but it'll still be okay. So I just, as you can see, I'm pinching off all the excess, and then I trim it off with my knife. I roll it to make it nice and even, pinch off that extra again, trim it off. You got to be careful not to go too thin with it because you end up hitting your lollipop stick and then you get to start over, which happened to me, and I didn't show you in my little video here. That all gets, erased with the power of editing. It's as if it never even happened. But once you have the legs nice, stick them back into the boots. And now, as you can see, I did trim off those lollipop sticks, and I'm moving on to Freddy's body. I've got a nice hot pink color here. I make a nice bulb at the bottom, nice long neck at the top, because his neck and his body, I'm just making it all one piece. And as you can see, I trimmed off those sticks a little bit more, and I'm just setting the body right on top. He should be skinnier. Again, he is much more lean in the cartoon than I'm making him here, but I gotta work with what I got. So I'm doing the best I can, darn it. Now I took some really skinny little pieces of my pink gum paste, a nice long rectangle that I rolled out and cut, a little bit of water around the top of each leg where it's near the body, and then I'm going to wrap it around the top of his leg, and yeah, that's just what I'm doing. If you look at pictures of him, his pink feathers do go down just into the tops of his legs a little bit, so that's what I'm trying to do here. Now, once I've got that in place, I realized that that neck I had made kept flopping forward, so I'm shoving a piece of dried spaghetti down the front of it into the body. I had my hand under it to make sure I didn't poke through. You gotta be careful if you do that, and that's just for the stability. This light blue color is going to become his jacket. I have a long rectangle, as you see, nice and thin, and I wrap it around him, and I mark it off, and I just start trimming. And I started, as you can see, with a really big rectangle here. And by the time I was done trimming and nipping it and trimming and thinning, as you can see, I kind of have like a big old fingernail clipping shape here. A crescent shape, if you will, that's just flat on each end. So now it wraps around, it overlaps a little bit because he's wearing that double-breasted coat kind of thing. And it's nice and even and round. You have room for his rump to stick out in the back. It doesn't cover up his legs or anything. Now I'm going to cut out my long, skinny little crescent here, and that's going to become the collar of his jacket. It just so happened to just make it, so that was fortunate. And I'm going to use some water, just like that, brush it all around, hold it into place. Make sure it's skinny at the ends where the jacket overlaps, and then gets a little bit thicker throughout. And you also have to make sure you press it down in proper place. Now this purple's going to become his wings. I rolled out my gum paste thicker here. I want it to be a decent thickness, but again, it can't be too thick because those poor little skinny legs have to support everything you're building on top of it. I hollow out the center, as you saw there, with my circle cutter. Now I'm just using my knife to cut out little triangle wedges in order to separate the wing feathers. I tried to make the wing feathers all the same thickness. Like I had to go back and fix it a little bit to trim away a little more because I felt like the one was too fat. And I have big gaps on the sides where the main flight feathers are, and then as you get underneath, I'm taking much smaller little triangles out. Okay, so I did that on both sides as even as I could. And I do have squared off cuts here, so I'm using the back of my fingernail and I'm just pressing the corners in for each feather. I didn't need to show you each and every single one, but I'm just rounding off the feathers a bit. So there you go. All right, his wings are well begun. Okay, I've got my hot pink again, and I'm going to use this circle cutter that has like a scalloping around it that I found somewhere, I forget where. And I'm just going to fold it over like I'm making a sandwich out of his wing there. And it's going to kind of represent the pink feathers that come out over the top of his purple feathers. And I thought this was just a genius little shortcut. I was very proud of myself and happy with it because I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So it turned out good. I like how it worked out. I am trimming at a sharp angle there, those two last feathers, because now I have to put the sleeves of his jacket onto his wings. I rolled out more of the blue real thin again and just wrap it around again, kind of like a sandwich, and try to keep it tapered because it's much thinner where it meets his body. See, I'm trying to really shape it more. It's much thinner of the sleeve where it meets his body, and then it flares out to kind of follow the shape of his wing and his feathers. So that's what I'm trying to represent here. I feel like they probably should have been thinner, like I should have probably trimmed off even more or maybe taken more of the wing away first, but this is what I got. This is what I got. So it's not bad, though I still was happy with it. All right, I put some water on the wing and I bent it up so it will kind of fold along his body. If you need to have the wings out in a different position, you would have to let the body dry overnight. I don't know how else you could do it because it just becomes so much weight that if your gum paste is still soft, it's going to pull and cause it to sag awkwardly. So that's why I have the wings kind of folded up like this, kind of against the body. I'm trying to keep the weight centralized and as in, one location as possible. This is the tail feathers. I just, as you saw, rolled out one long hot dog piece, trimmed off the two ends there at the bottom just to make it look like it's two little tail feathers, stuck it on with some water, zipping right along here. This is going to become the patches on his sleeves. It's just two dark blue rectangles, just the same color as his boots or his sneakers, I guess they are. And I'm just putting them right along the top of his wing. I'm going to move over to white right now. This is white gum paste rolled out super skinny. I tried to do this like seriously as skinny as I could. And I'm going to start working on the boots. In order to cover the toe and go around the sole, you make kind of a hat shaped. So you have it real long on the sides and a little hat in the middle. And then when you put it on, you can just wrap it all around. And as you see, I didn't go long enough, so I'd had to cut another little skinny strip to wrap it around the back and connect in the two sides. But if you do it right, then it goes all the way around and it looks really sharp. I'm taking really skinny little rectangles here and doing up and down the laces of his boots. They go very far up and down, you see? So just put as many skinny little ones in there as you can. I'm using those same little tiny skinny strips to put the marks on the arrows, I guess they are, on his patches. So it's just one little line, and then I took another skinny little one and just bent it in half. So there's no trickery or anything sneaky here. It's just a straight line and then a bent line to make his little arrows. I also added 6 little buttons to his jacket. You'll see right there. There's 5 of them, and there's number 6. Nothing surprising there, just little balls pressed in with some water. Gonna go back to his other shoe because I do jump around a bit. And I made another hat. This one I made nice and long, so this one actually made it almost completely around. But we're gonna pretend it did. It made it all the way around. Yep, sure did. So again, because it didn't honestly quite make it around, I just added another little skinny piece in the back to connect it and smooth it off, press it up tight against the foot, add your laces just like before, make sure they're nice and even, square off your toe a little bit if it's a little sloppy, which mine was, and there, yeah, like looking nice, right? Like I was really kind of happy with him. I was struggling with this guy, like I couldn't figure out how I could make him. And again, the legs should be skinnier, the neck should be skinnier. You look at your finished product and you pick it apart. But overall, I really am happy with him. This is going to be his head. It's kind of an oblong circle. It's a little bigger on the top and squared off on the top. And then it is on the bottom. I'm using the small end of my ball tool to hollow out a couple of long ovals for his eyes. And this is going to be his beak. His beak, again, is kind of tricky because it's a yellow beak with a black tip. And I didn't know what I was going to do for that, so I just winged it. I made this kind of bulbous shape here. I pinched off the two sides to make the beak because it kind of wraps around his head a bit. And then I took some black, a ball of black, and just rolled it out real skinny, like as skinny as I could. Laid it over the top of his beak. And then I'm going to pinch the bottom and then trim it. So we're kind of doing the same thing that we did with the wing as before, where you just kind of wrap it around and trim off the extra. That's all I'm doing here. I ended up trimming off a little bit more than I'm going to show you, just because his beak was enormous once I actually held it up to the head, which I probably should have done first. So in hindsight, I'm going to recommend you hold it up before you add the black, because otherwise you have to pick it apart like I did and just keep trimming and trimming, and make sure you get a nice little curve to the end of his beak. But you don't want it to be predatory, so don't have like a hooked beak, you know, like a sharp pointy hooked beak. Make sure it stays slightly rounded on the end, because this is still a preschooler show. Now I trimmed off a little bit extra with the circle cutter to make it hug the shape of the face, and then I just stuck it on. Now I'm adding some white gum paste for the eyes. Nothing special or surprising here. Smoothing it out with my ball tool. Try to make them even. I'm adding some dark red for the eyes, for the irises of his eyes, and they do not take up his whole eye. Be careful how full you make them, like leave at least half of the eye still white. The black, the pupil of his eye, does fill up a lot of the red, so just be aware of that as well. And I'm using the back of my X-Acto knife to put a line in each of the yellow sides there of his beak to make him happy, because he likes his job. I'm cutting off the top of his head because I cheat when I make hats. I am not good at making hats follow the curve of the head, so I just cut the top of the head off. I make it easy for myself. His hat is kind of lumpy, so I have a big ball in the front and a smaller one in the back that you saw I just separated with my tool. This is going to be the brim of the hat. I just circle cut it a crescent shape. Stick it on with a little bit of water. There you go. And his hat is tiny. It's very small for the size of his head. Another little skinny crescent piece here to go vertically against the front of his hat. So I don't know why. I might have misjudged the picture, but that I was using as a reference. That's what it looked like to me. How it's got like the little bit in the front. I'm adding a couple little highlights just because it makes his eyes sparkle and shine. Look at that. Now he's all happy and sparkly. And when you get the head done, stick it on his neck. There you go. Now you're like, ooh, he looks great. We're not done yet. Okay, we're going to take one more piece of pink. Going to put two little ridges in it. So now we have 3 separations. Make them nice and rounded. And that's going to become the feathers on the back of his head. So just stick them on like that. A little bit of water. There you go. I'm just using my knife blade to press it in against his head a little more firmly. And yeah, see how it looks. Okay, one more little touch. His eyebrows. He's very expressive, our Freddy. So I'm using a food coloring marker. Couple little eyebrows, and there you go. There you go. You got your Freddy from T.O.T.S. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because I find that super helpful. I've got a ton of other videos as well as Pip the Penguin, so check those out. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.